morning, everybody. Thanks for joining us. We're going to get started. There might be a couple of stragglers that join us in the next couple of minutes, but in the interest of time, I think we'll get going. So thank you for joining us. Good morning. I'm Carrie Hill. I'm the Manager of Community Engagement here at CMHA. And I just wanted to thank you all for joining us for our third in our Wake Up, Speak Up series. We're extremely excited to have you here this morning with our guest speaker. I just want to take a moment to thank the sponsors that have made our Wake Up, Speak Up series possible. And they include Hotel Dieu Grace Healthcare, LIUNA 625, St. Clair College Alumni Association, Hub International, Ottawa Street Dental, and Tim Hortons. And just some housekeeping as well before we begin. If everybody could keep themselves muted throughout the presentation, if you have any questions, throw them in the chat. We will be monitoring it and doing a Q&A at the end of Tony's presentation. So we also recognize that some of the content this morning might be disturbing, triggering for some people. So if you do find yourself triggered by anything that we talk about, we do have some staff on hand this morning that will be available in the chat. So Evelina and Carrie are here with us this morning. Thank you, ladies. So now it is my absolute pleasure to introduce one of our Sole Focus ambassadors, Tony Smith. Tony he spent almost 20 years as a Windsor Police Officer, 10 of those years as a SWAT Operator, and 7 as a team leader. He's the youngest person to ever hold that position. Tony is the co-founder of the Garage Gym with his wife, Dani, and together they've helped hundreds of people become fit, healthy, and happy. He's the leader of the Garage Gym Army, the greatest fitness community in the world, working diligently to raise money for local charities, while also making a positive impact in our communities. In addition, Tony is the host of the Tango One podcast and a mentor to individuals and organizations looking to live the tactical life by focusing on fitness, nutrition, confidence, and service. Tony's motto is do more, be more. So without further ado, welcome, Tony.
Thank you. Thank you very much. All right, cool. I'm gonna see how I can do all these things and see if I can share my screen, and then we'll get started. So I just have a couple housekeeping things with everybody. Feel free at any point to kind of throw questions in the chat. And I think, Carrie, you have somebody who's going to take care of making sure that I get those questions. I don't mind stopping at any point. I'd actually prefer if you guys ask questions. It'll probably make this go a little bit easier for me. I do host a podcast, but I'm usually talking to one person, and it's not usually about my innermost, deepest secrets that I'm going to share with you guys today. So also, I'm really excited to have here. I have my actual doctor, Sean Harrington, is on here, and at some point, Sean, we might have to get you to pop on to answer some questions for people. But Sean is here and willing to answer questions for all of you guys, and to make sure that he can explain some of the more technical aspects of maybe how and why things happen and how they get dealt with. So, anyways, I'm going to do my share screen here to add on to what Carrie said. I did spend 19 years as a police officer, all of which was in the city of Windsor. My dad was a cop and my wife was a cop. So policing has kind of been in my blood, and the rest of my family on my dad's side was mostly criminals. So we had a little bit of both sides going on. And I spent 9 years out on the street. So I spent my first 4 or 5 years working like as a patrol officer, answering call to call and driving all over the city. And then I spent my back and the last 4 years of my career working in the West End, in one of the busiest areas in Windsor and one of the best areas to work, in my opinion. 10 years I spent on the Windsor Police Emergency Services Unit. I'm super proud of that. It was probably the best years of my life, even though I'm having some pretty great times now. My biggest compliment in that time there was I was named team leader, as she mentioned. So I was the youngest person to ever get that spot. Coolest thing about becoming a team leader on that unit is that it's voted by your peers. So it's picked by your peers. It has nothing to do with anybody. There's no pay raise. In fact, you probably make less because you spend more time there. But it has no rank. It's just picked by your peers as you're the person who's going to represent them to make the final decisions, to make sure that everybody working one team, a bunch of type A personalities, head in one direction so that we can get stuff done. I got an all kinds of certifications. I was at probably about 5,000 tactical operations. I led probably 3,000 missions. And I served over 1,000 high-risk entries. So entries and warrants, so where you go into the doors to find people for all kinds of things, hundreds of shootings, stabbings, murders. And I began instructing leadership and tactics and developed a couple of courses there during my time. Well, little do people know, I don't know if everybody on this call is from Windsor, but Windsor is and was at that point one of the busiest teams in Ontario. We kind of, our claim to fame was my busiest year that I worked. We did 220 drug raids or gun raids, and Toronto did 280. Difference being, Toronto has 80 members on their team and Windsor has 16. So you can imagine the amount of overtime and the amount of call-ins. We were basically on, if you were in the city, if you weren't gone away on vacation, or if you weren't intoxicated, you were on call and ready to go in at any point in your time. So since I resigned about almost, man, it'll be 3 years to the day on Canada Day. And they overlapped my business into my into the policing career. But I am the founder of the Garage Gym. We have 2 locations, one in Amherstburg and Kingsville. I manage about a 15-person team, give or take. Right now, we got a few people that aren't really working because of COVID. Own a few properties. That's another stream of revenue that we do. This makes up for my giving up my pension. I was a strength and conditioning coach for UFC fighter Randa Marcos. I consider myself a philanthropist. First time somebody told me that, I thought they were insulting me. I didn't even know it. I had to look it up. So I'm a bit of a meathead too. Okay, I've been a cop since I was a young guy, and then I just lifted weights, and all of a sudden it's become a career. But since though, we've raised the Garage Gym Army. I call us the greatest fitness community in the world. We've raised over $800,000 for charity, and I'm pretty damn proud of that because we do it the old school way, $10 at a time, and including we've raised a good chunk for the CMHA over the last year, which has been great to partner up with them. And I run another kind of side business called Tango One Solutions, where I've been going in and helping businesses and admin teams kind of learn about team building and leadership. Because I think one thing I learned when I became the team leader at 28 years old was that you get all these courses on how to shoot guns or how to, in your jobs, whatever it is, how to do that, but very little people get any courses on how to lead that's actually useful, other than stuff that's in books. And I have a wife, Dani, who's my obviously co-owner of the gym. She quit policing 5 years ago. That's where we met. And since we had 2 sons, they're 6 and 8 years old, I like to consider myself a warrior in the garden. So if anybody has any questions or anything, please shoot them in the text. I'd love to know what kind of everybody does, so I can kind of gear this talk towards everybody. So if you want to take a second to kind of throw your name and what you do in the chat, or what you want to do in the chat, that might help a little bit for me. I don't even know if I can see the chat, but I can see it. There we go. Now, when I see the chat, can you guys see the chat on my screen? Yeah, so I'll move it over here so nobody can see it. In case somebody puts something personal in there. If you have personal stuff, I won't use your name. So if you send one direct to me, I won't use your name in here. So everybody take a minute while I set up for my next little part. I was super nervous, but now I'm not at all because I can't really see anybody. So it just seems like I'm talking directly to Carrie, and she's always smiling. So that makes this easier. Okay, not one person has a job here apparently, so that's why you're all on here. That's why we haven't gotten anything in the chat unless I'm missing it all. There we go. Now we're getting a few.
Yeah,
okay,
there's a few.
Social workers.
Yeah.
Windsor Regional Hospital. Good. I hope some of the things I say today will help you guys understand maybe more of who and what you're working with. And a lot of you guys, I'm sure, if you're working in social work and in hospitals, you're seeing a lot of shitty things. It's the other thing I want to start with, I speak like I speak. So it comes from the heart and a place of passion. It's not meant to just be exclamation marks. So if I drop an F-bomb or two, get over it. So I hope I don't offend anybody. Honestly, offending people is not really my concern usually. So here we go. So a few years ago, I stood on the railing of a 25th floor high rise. I was looking down at the ground, imagining the outcome the jump would cause. The cold Toronto air was blowing in my face, and I remember thinking of the irony. The scene reminded me of a suicide I had just foiled at a downtown Windsor high-rise just a few months earlier, in which I daringly pulled a young woman back from the ledge of a 24th floor balcony into safety after 9 hours of endless, exhausting negotiations. I had been commended for that action, despite breaking the orders of a cowardly administrator on that chilly evening. Now I was the one in need, feeling isolated, alone, and desperate. In recent years, I had worked so hard to rid myself of all these feelings, avoiding triggers, focusing on my family, my health, and breaking out from behind the trap of the thin blue line. Yet every few months, I'd find myself back here. My beautiful wife, Dani, was laying in the bed about 10 feet away, sound asleep. We had rented a swanky Airbnb in downtown Toronto. It was meant to be like a reprieve, like a peaceful trip away from another critical incident that was weighing on my soul. We had just been involved in a shooting. And I remember how beautiful and peaceful she looked. That night she slept, her face and lean body highlighted by the bright lights of the Six, which is, in my opinion, the coolest city that we have in this country. Dani was the only one who really understood me. Sorry, I didn't know this was going to be this hard. Anyways, once we get through this part, I'll be good. And she was the one who really understood that, saw the turmoil that hid behind my trademark smile. In the 5 years leading up to this, she helped me heal in so many ways, encouraged my burgeoning fitness career, and helped me to identify the triggers of what we self-diagnosed as PTSD. She helped me to avoid the vortex of the thin blue line, which so often sucks in young men and women away from their friends and family. She also pleaded with me to swallow my pride and seek the help that I desperately needed. Before Dani, these nights usually ended with bar fights, altercations with drug dealers, or sex. Dani helped me away from that life, but now she often bore the brunt of my frustrations, and this night in Toronto was no different. She had cried herself to sleep after I verbally thrashed her for relentlessly and without cause. Although this was the lowest I had ever sunk, this type of night was not uncommon in my life. In fact, it had become more the norm. It had started like so many others with good intentions and good company. I can't recall what set me off on this occasion, but usually it was an innocent question from a friend or a curious acquaintance or someone I had just met looking for a good cop story. Always, what's the worst thing you'd ever seen? What's the craziest shit you've ever done? Sometimes on the good times, I'd blow it off, or I'd tell a funny story of a crackhead, or simply change the subject, or even walk away. But on the bad times, I'd entertain it. Especially when I quickly judged the person across from me as a pencil pusher or a liberal that would piss themselves with fear if they ever stepped foot in my shoes, if they ever had the balls to put my gun and badge on for even the quietest shift that I worked. Sometimes, especially the nights fueled by Bud Lights and warm shots of Jameson, I tell them what they asked for, especially when I knew it wasn't what they wanted to hear. I tell them about tending to a 4-year-old boy with some guys from my team, carrying his limp body to an ambulance while desperately trying to save his life, using our fingers as if they were plugs, trying to plug holes in his precious little body as if it was a leaky bucket. A failing attempt, of course, to save him from what his drug-induced mother had stabbed 21 times into his back. I wouldn't tell them that I actually knew this kid, that his grandmother had been my ex's housekeeper, and I had wrestled and laughed on the living room floor with him just a few months before this incident. I certainly left out the part that still years later, I've awoken to my own son's cries, half drunk, running into his room to rip him out of his bed, panically scouring his body for the same wounds before realizing the reality of the situation. And then crumbling into his bed where I would hold him sobbing and terrified until Dani would convince me to come back to our own bed. Other times I tell them about the hooker I found covered in bruises with over 20 bones, broken, malnourished, covered in dirt and reeking of shit and piss smeared on her body. She resembled the deformed creature that accompanied the Hobbit in the Lord of the Rings. She was repeatedly beaten as a payment for a drug debt. I wouldn't tell them about arresting her assailant. The parts that I wouldn't tell were always those like parts inside of me that like the parts that really burn. So I didn't tell people though that case drove me crazy because I let that man go to the jail without laying my hands on him unscathed. I live by the mantra, a good man that does bad things to bad people so good people can sleep at night. And I felt like I betrayed my own code that day by not rendering a savage and vengeful beating on him. Or I talk about the murder of the toddler of a drug dealer left spooning his slave father, walking in on a woman who had been raped and bludgeoned, fighting her killer while trying to revive her faceless corpse. The mother hanging dead in the child's closet or frantically rendering first aid to a comrade that had been stabbed during officer-involved shooting. And of course, I tell the story of my friend and mentor who noticed a drug deal going down when he stopped to buy his daughter a birthday card and was shot in the face when he tried to intervene. John Atkinson, of course. The stories were endless and gruesome scenes, countless suicides, abused children, murders, and adrenaline-charged mental health interventions, weapon seizures, and car chases. No matter what I decided to share, the result would set off a common cycle of emotions: anger, sorrow, and disgust. The anger was always followed by deep sorrow and disgust. Disgust for a bullshit court system, cowardly cops, drug users, criminals, the mentally ill, cowardly administrators that were more concerned with promotion than they were the safety of their own people. Disappointment in the political decisions made by officers, fathers who had risen to, and even in my own father who had risen to become the chief, and in my mom for defending him for some of these political decisions he had to make. Disgust was for everyone. That's part of what I think happens to people when they get in my situation. You start to find a reason to hate, and you start to find a reason to be mad. You have disgust for everyone, even the good people, the ones who are empathetic towards the dirty animals my friends and I were trying to keep at bay, and who innocently and ignorantly went about their days clueless as to what it meant to bear the burden of the gun and the badge. I was disgusted in myself because I had transformed from such a loving, happy spirit into someone who had found a reason to hate everyone. And now, somehow, I found a way to even hate my wife. How did I come to this? More importantly, how did I get out of it? All right, tough stuff's done. Let's go move on. All right, so why am I here and why did I share this story with you today? One, I wrote that story the day I decided to call Sean Harrington. And I'll get to that later. I'm part of, I guess, being a police officer, or part of anybody who deals in these kind of things. You kind of, you do have a little bit of a sense of humor behind all of it. I hope that didn't set anybody off, but I also think that you need to realize, especially a lot of you people who are on here, dealing with people in my position, of what they are seeing and what they are doing. I also hope that you can understand that maybe this does lend some perspective on your own life. So maybe online schooling isn't so bad, you know, maybe wearing a mask isn't so bad. Like some of the things that we complain about in perspective to some of the things that I've seen other people deal with it just helps. The other thing you can do to help yourself just a little bit, if any of that stuff bothered you, is recognize that it's my story. It's not yours. So when I go and I watch TV shows and I let these things trigger me, like that's one of my things. This is not my story. This is somebody else's. Why am I allowing it to live in my life? Right. So those are a couple just little things that if you do need to talk, Sean's on here, but I know CMHA will help you guys out with anybody if I triggered anything. I didn't mean it, but it is what it is, and it's the truth, and it's my story. So why is this important? Well, I feel it's important because I felt that the only way to fix my problem was to quit my job. And I was a pretty fucking good cop. Okay, the world needs first responders. They need people who do all these jobs. And when I say first responders, I mean nurses, jail, everything. All these people that are doing these very essential jobs. Okay, we need these people and we need the good ones to stay. So stopping people from quitting or stopping people from hitting rock bottom and obviously stopping people from actually stepping off that ledge is got to be something that's very important to all of us here and something that's very important to me. Not every person will have another outlet or will have like the confidence to step out of $100,000 job and into the fitness industry or into their own thing. So if we can't find themselves, they're going to feel trapped and they're going to feel, or they're going to become people that just don't work, the people that call in sick, the people that just want to be in the offices, that don't want to be out dealing with the things that set them off. And we need to make sure that those people continue to, strive. The other thing that I want to get across is that what you see on the outside doesn't always match. The way you guys see me, my smile, the way I carry myself, that was how I was with everybody all the time until I had a bunch of drinks and somebody set me off or something set me off. And when I say somebody set me off, it was me. I was in control of my own actions. I allowed things to set me off. That's another thing, is how you speak, how you say things. Did somebody set me off? The way when I wrote that, I was in a way angrier place. Did I hate my father? Did I hate everybody? No, I mean, I hated myself. And I was in control of how I was throwing that out to the world. So what you see on the outside doesn't always match the inside. The people who were closest to me, they got to see the worst, unfortunately. Also, I think it's very important that we build the resilience before issues arrive. So if, I'm not bashing the police service by any means. They've come so far and I'm so happy to see the things that they're doing now. I just had one of my closest guys that I mentor, a friend of mine. He just was hired with the fire department. And one of the things that they've done, and this is near Toronto somewhere, is they're actually building relationships with people like Sean Harrington or psychologists, counselors before there's problems, so that you have the ability to talk to somebody that you already know, instead of going into an office the day after you did what some of those things you guys just heard me talk about, and then try to talk about it. So if you can build the relationship before, if you can build up, it's just like fitness. If I can build up my body, the less likely I am to get injured, right? So the idea is to bring people back. In my opinion, yes, that's necessary. The idea is to stop them from getting there, to stop them from feeling how I just described to you guys. Like the best way, right? So let's use COVID as an example. The best way to not get sick is to not get sick. And the best way to do that is to take care of your health and your fitness. So, and mental health included when it comes to all this stuff that we're talking about now. So the best way to not get sick is to just not get sick. So if we can stop it in advance, let's stop it. My opinion there is relationships and connection. Relationships and connections. For anybody who's on here who's an administrator, relationships and connection. And this is not meant to be offensive. It's not going to be some kind of program. It's not going to be something delivered through a PowerPoint. It's legitimate relationships and connections that are going to keep your people on track, on point. And then if they do need help, with the confidence to feel like they can do so. So I'm just going to flip through a few of your things here. Oh, Chris is on here. A few of my garage gym folks are on here. That's glad I didn't read that first. I would have cried worse or more. Yeah, thank you guys for all the support and all these things you guys are writing on here. It's very appreciated. So please cut in, ask questions, because the rest of this is just it's just on a limb. All right. So things that happened to me. So this is like the healing process was long, and I tried to do it almost all myself. Type A personality, confident, macho, whatever you want to call it. Somebody who's covered in tattoos. Most of my tattoos come from the places of anger, believe it or not. But things that happened to me is quickly I started to feel the shift work and things that happen in some of these industries. You don't have the I got hired. First of all, I got hired when I was 21 years old. So it was Saturday, November, I don't know, something in 1999. I won the national championship with the AKO Fratman. John Atkinson was actually there on the sideline to congratulate me, because on Monday I was starting in the police service. So I won a national championship. Monday started at the police service. It was wild, right? But then all of a sudden, all my best friends, all these guys, they all had like normal jobs, right? And I would work. I would work midnights. I'd sleep during the day. I'd work on the weekends when they were off. So all of a sudden, you just start hanging out with the police, and there's nothing wrong with hanging out with cops. It's awesome. However, losing all those other people that kept you grounded and that don't live in that dark world that you live in, that don't have all that kind of you know, that cop comedy, or that like first responder comedy, that dark comedy, that dark side of you, it becomes, you just become part of that, and then you can't get at it. All you do is talk about it. All you do is live it constantly. So I started to become really disconnected. And when I say disconnected, I mean like I would be like just listening to other people talk and like wondering why I'm even there. The other thing that was happening with being so young was that I was in such a different place than my friends. The things, I mean, going and walking into somebody's house and telling them after they, their wife had been beaten and arresting somebody, it wasn't things that my friends were dealing with. They were like going to their job, making just a little bit over minimum wage at that point, or starting off in their careers and then going out partying on the weekends. So it just didn't feel like I had that same kind of connection. And then same with my friends, my family, they just, all they read is what's in the paper. They don't really see what's going on. And the true, I said some of those things, and what I wrote was, it's that like really the innocence that the other people now, I used to hate people. So I'm looking at Carrie on my screen. So if I was talking to Carrie and I felt like she had this like just innocence and had no idea how bad the streets were of Windsor, I would be so mad about it. Now, looking back, I should be proud, and I hope other cops are proud, because if somebody feels that safe and secure, it means you're doing a great fucking job. It means you're doing exactly what the police are supposed to be doing. And the stuff that gets printed in the paper, the negative and the bad, you just got to deal with it, because we know there's 100,000 other incidents where things don't go bad. I felt that I was angry all the time. So you can obviously tell I'm a little bit passionate. So part of those problems is that anger, right? So as easily as I can cry, I can get mad, right? So I felt like I was constantly in fight mode. And if you guys, anybody who knows anything from the fitness space, or, even through yoga, all these things, there's like, you could be in fight or flight, or you're going to be in rest and digest. If you don't spend a lot of time in rest and digest, you're never going to feel right. And now when I go to court, so this sun is so bright. When I go to court and things, I do feel bad. I see a lot of these guys and girls I used to work with, and they're in rest, they're in fight or flight all the time. They're mad about all those same things I was talking about, the politics, the who got promoted, the who got solved this case, or how come the judge let this guy off for that. It's just a constant fight. And then that carries over when you when you do lead your normal life, and then you go home. So at 5 o'clock in the afternoon, day shift's over, you might have done 10 calls that were really highly amped. You heard somebody arguing about who got this job, or who got charged for this when they shouldn't have. And then you go home, you take that anger home, and you can't just check out. That was part of my problem. That's part of a lot of people's problems, in my opinion. Drifting. So I call it drifting. I think like Sean and you smart people would call it intrusive thoughts or things. Okay. I would just be drifting. People would be talking to me, and I would just be thinking about something totally else, something that either really brutal, like the things I read, or something that really had me angered. And this would happen at night. It happened at dinner. It happened a lot when I was driving. I would drive to work and not really remember getting there. Like it was just on autopilot. My brain was just thinking, and I was gripping the steering wheel, and just like that kind of thing. Or mid conversation, I just lose the ability to focus. And when you lose the ability to focus, you lose the ability to listen. So as I just talk right now, the most important part of communication is your ability to actually listen and give feedback on the conversation you're having. And that comes back to now connection and relationships, like I talked about earlier. The other thing I was losing was sympathy and empathy. You would, especially towards the end in my last few years, you would just go into houses, and all I would think about is, let's just get this over with so we can get back in the car and go to the next call. And there was like very little heart involved. And yes, you do have to become a little callous to be able to do that job. But I think the really great ones have an ability to be calloused enough to be firm and strong, but also to have empathy. And I was starting to lose that. So when I decided, so I did all these different things to try to get healthy. So right around probably 2014, 15, a picture of me, and I had it somewhere, but it came, it came across. And I was like, at this point, I lifted, or we worked out on that team. We worked out every day. I ate pretty damn healthy, but I drank and I drank and I drank. And we would work, I think we worked 600 hours of overtime, something ridiculous like that. And then we would drink and we would hang out, and it would just be, and I looked at this picture of me and it just didn't look like me. I looked overweight. I looked gray, even though my fitness was kind of on point. So I started to realize like it's time to like tone this back, and I started to really gear myself towards fitness. I paid more attention to the food. I'll come back to this one. To the food I was eating, and I started to focus on nutrition and mindset. I started reading again, something that I loved and forgot. I started writing again, something that I loved and forgot. And I started to pursue other passions outside of the police department. This is when I started to get all my certifications for the gym. I wasn't educated in the gym business. I just like to lift weights. So I started to educate myself, and I started to go on courses and to find family. And like I started to surround myself more with my family and my friends again, rather than just police officers. I sought out coaches for my fitness and mentors, and I started to learn about fitness, about business, about all these great things. In essence, I started to level up, but still every day, no matter what I did, these kind of problems would come back over and over and over again. Yes, they got better, but I started avoiding triggers, which I guess maybe Sean can talk about it later, but avoiding triggers isn't really kind of how I got better. It was actually Sean sending me into the ghetto on drives and making me watch movies that I didn't want to watch, that would actually help me to teach myself that like, hey, I can get through all these things and none of these other things really matter. So avoiding triggers is just like, holding down the beach ball under the water. Eventually it's going to pop up somewhere else, right? So I started to do all these things on my own, avoiding the triggers before I went to Sean, and I was still having problems. So then, in your way of kind of self-diagnosing and trying to, without getting real help, I decided, you know what? I love fitness so much, and I love this gym. Dani and I, it started in our house. That's why it's called the garage. It started in our backyard, and it started out of spite. Another thing. So it started out of spite. I got the old chief. We don't need to talk about him. Not a fan. He decided to put a tenure into the police department, and basically I was like, hey, you're doing a great job. You're still in great shape. You're leading. Teaching leadership and tactics throughout the whole province. People from everywhere are calling you. But yeah, thanks for your help. We're gonna try somebody new. Everybody deserves a chance here. Go back to patrol. And I was like, and if you're an administrator, here's a good lesson for you. They assumed, they being the bosses, right, that I would be motivated by money. My passion was on that team. I had no interest in being promoted, right? So they're like, hey, you did a great job here. Go get your promotion, take your pay bump, and move on. I'm like, oh, this is what I want to do. This is the only thing I ever wanted to do since I got here. And I'm still doing it at a high standard and a high performance. Maybe in the end of the day, it was a blessing because it got me out of there. But that was the idea, right? So then I went back to patrol a little bit jaded and decided to start training some people in my garage because I didn't want to ever go to the gym at the police department again on my own time. So I was like, I'm going to work out at home. Started training a couple of people. It turned into like Fight Club in my backyard. People would just show up and say, hey, is this garage gym? And I'd be like so sketched out because I was still a cop. I'm like, yeah, come back, go around the backyard. So anyways, we opened the business, and she retired. And then I kind of saw that as my out. I was like, you know what? If I could just hang this uniform up and never put it back on, these feelings won't happen again. And so I did it. It wasn't the only reason I did it, but it definitely played a massive factor in that. And things got better for a bit, but it would still creep in. Then I started doing the charity work. And I come to think that maybe the charity work was a lot more selfish than I let on to people, because I think it was a way for me to try to like push the guilt down. So try to avoid the triggers. The woman I talked about who, I walked in on as she was being killed. Maybe I could have got there a minute early if I wouldn't have stopped for a coffee right before that call came in. Like maybe if I would have turned faster, things would have been different. And there's a whole back end of that story that I won't even get into. But maybe it was the guilt from that. But I started doing this charity work. And when I do the charity work, the crazy thing was we started I guess like the passion, the things that we do, we started to have like crazy success, right? Like, I mean, our first charity thing, we raised 50 grand, the next one, 50 grand. It was like, but every single time, the moment that we announced the money, the moment that we announced the big win, when I should have been celebrating and enjoying the accomplishments, I would go into a shutdown. I would sneak out the back door and I would have the worst 2 to 3 days ever. And because I think that no matter what we did, handing all of that money to some people that really in need, it didn't make me feel any better about what else was going on inside of me. So fast forward a few years and, maybe I think it's 2018, we had this big, huge event, the Row Against Cancer, which was then called Brews and Crews. And we held it this time, instead of just doing it with the garage gym, we reached out to all these gyms. So we had 1,100 people show up at the WFCU. And we ended up raising $170,000 or $180,000 in one day. It was a very, very proud moment. And unfortunately, though, that day I gave a speech just like this, and I'm not just like this, was more uplifting, I guess, but to 1,100 people screaming and cheering, and then they all rode a marathon. So they rode on the rowing machines for like 3 hours. The arena was packed. It was the funnest thing. And I went back. We had an Airbnb at the time, and I went back there to have some quiet time by myself, and I was curled in a ball. I never felt the way that I felt, or as low as I felt. So despite taking care of my health, doing some mindfulness, seeking out coaching, surrounding myself with great people, leaving the job, all the shit that I didn't deal with was still there, and nobody was seeing it. So then this was the last step. So just after that fundraiser is where I felt like I had my biggest breakdown. I came home a couple of days later, a day later, and my son, the little guy on the left there, he's like the sweetest little boy. At that time, he was 4 years old, and I don't even know what he did. And my kids are like, and anybody who's been around my kids, they're like, I'm biased, but they're the most well-behaved kids that you'll ever see. And he looked at me and he's like, "Dad, I'm a good boy. Why do you keep yelling at me all the time?" So that didn't help, I guess, when I walked in the door that day. But it also gave me the realization, kids are so crazy how they can point things out that should be so obvious. And he was right. I was yelling at him and his brother for everything, for nothing. And constant. I was just that constant anger, that constant fight or flight was now coming out. And I obviously feel bad about how it came out on Dani many times, but when it comes out on your children, it takes it to a whole new level. So that day I went up to my office and I wrote what I just read to you guys. And then Dani came up to see how I was. And obviously I was not in good shape. And I just asked her to read it. She looked at me and she hugged me and she said, now it's time. Now it's time. You got to promise me for these boys that you will go and you'll get some help right away. So integrity, it's the first word of the garage gym, first value of the garage gym. Integrity is doing what you say when you say you're going to do it. So I grabbed my phone and I sent out a text. The text, funny enough, I don't know if other jobs are like this, but the police service, they give you phones and then you switch jobs and they give it to somebody else. They got into put anything deep on this because it went to totally the wrong person. And so he sent me back a text and said, "I think who are you trying to get hold of?" And I said, "Tim Harrington." Tim Harrington was a counselor with the Windsor Police. So he's actually a Windsor Police Officer, but he worked with the, I don't even know what the unit's called, but basically checking on guys, peer counselors. And his son is Sean. Sean is the doctor who's on here today. So Tim, actually, him and we walked the beat together. So you can imagine how funny this is. As I think I met Sean when he was 11 years old, and he probably looked up to me as this young cop who was getting himself into trouble all the time and working with his dad. And then now I've got to call and ask him. So I sent Tim a text message, and Tim hadn't seen me in probably 2 years. And I just said, "Hey, Tim, can you put me in touch with Sean?" Tim didn't he didn't say why. He didn't ask what. He just said, "Yeah, of course I will. And I'm proud of you." And Sean set me up, and then I went for help. One of the fears, so I don't know that it was, the stigma or anything like that really kept me out from getting help. I think it was pride thinking that there's nothing wrong with you. The same kind of pride that, as I worked with the Cancer Society, that I learned that, the same kind of pride that keeps men from going to get their prostate checked on. You just don't want to admit that there's something wrong with you. And one of my greatest fears and was to actually go to Sean and find out that there was nothing wrong with me. Because then I was thinking like, man, is this how I am going to be? Is this how I have to be? Is this normal? And I went in for Sean, and he put me through a series of whatever, I don't even know, I won't try to describe it, but tests, I guess, like just like, a little like 1 to 10 and this and that, and tell me some things. And I told him some of the things on here, and Sean looks at me and he's like, and I don't want to take away his professionalism. We have a different kind of a relationship, him and I, and he's like, of course you're fucked up. And you and like, here's your score. You like, if PTSD was a 30, you got a 45. Like, congratulations. And it's like, now let's deal with it. Sean is a psychologist. He's on here too, so he can answer any of those questions once we get going. So anyways, Sean got me in there and taught me that it's not about avoiding triggers. It's actually about, just like everything you tell your kids to do, don't be scared, or be scared, but courage is moving forward in the face of that fear, right? So it's to go to your obstacles, and it's to climb over them or push through them or find a way under them, around them, whatever you have to do, but deal with it and go past it instead of just letting it stop you. That was one of the biggest things for me. And then, for anybody who's curious on the treatment, I don't understand the science behind it, nor do I need to. I think a lot of people kind of wrap their heads around trying to understand why, when just do what you're trusting this person to do. You pay somebody to be your coach, whether that's to learn how to bench press or ride a bike or to speak better in front of people. You pay this person to be your coach, your doctor. Trust him and let him do what they got to do. And that's what I did with Sean. And he made me go in. And the first time going in was like the first time that I actually went in for treatment. It was awful. I hated it. So now I'm not going to sugarcoat that for anybody. It was tough to walk in there. It was tough to sit there on a leather couch, just like on TV, and to tell him like the things I had never told anybody outside of the guys who had been on those calls with me and done those things with me. So I told him that, and then he's like, makes me record it and then go home and listen to it over and over and over and over again. And this went on for, I think it was only 6 or 8 weeks, but every week I'd go there, I would feel for the most part so much better. When I'd leave, I'd be kind of exhausted. But when I would come back, a day later, I just felt like $1,000,000. And so now I feel like for the first time in my life, like this has been over a year, maybe 2 years since, actually before COVID, so it's got to be over 2 years since Sean helped me to kind of deal with these things. Yeah, there's kind of some setbacks every once in a while, but it's just a phone call away. I don't even really have to go in, and I'm just able to reset, or he just shoots me, I shoot him a message. He's able to give me some kind of strategies to kind of reset and get my head back. Or I just realize that I'm getting away from some of those other things. So yeah, Sean helped me with the treatment, but the second that I start to ignore, I start to drink too much, or I start to ignore my health, my fitness, or I stop, structure equals freedom. If I stop laying out my week and making sure that I'm not frazzled, that I'm kind of in control, and that I'm properly leading my team, that's when all those things start to creep back in. So when you let go of some of the other pillars, that seems to happen to me. So that's been a big thing for me, is to make sure that I stick with all those great things I did before I went to seek help, so that the help that Sean gave me can really, still have its effect. So those are just some of the things I talked about, the treatment there. These are the things that I do. It all starts within. So no matter how much you want to say, you have to be the one who just realizes there has to be a degree of self-awareness. And I think if there's anything you're going to teach your children or people who start new at your job site, or people that mean a lot to you and that have an influence on, is to create self-awareness, especially men. I feel, and women, I think we're going to hit on part that might be even more important for you. So self-awareness for men, in my opinion, has become huge. And then in women, we see a lot, and my wife talks about this all the time, is that you're so selfless that you don't build any time for you. So that seems to be the two things that are super important to me, but I know that's very gender biased, but whatever. I'm just saying it how it is in my household, and you take it for what you want. But those are the two things that seem to happen with, is I don't want to admit there's a problem, and Dani knows there's a problem, but she makes herself so busy she can't fix it, right? So I was becoming a monster. Stress, rest, and sleep. Stress is okay. It's an important part of your life, but not if you don't rest and sleep. So 8 hours is what you're supposed to get, not 5, not 6.5, Okay. Those people who's like, I can work really good on 5 hours. Shut up. Okay. Like, you're not in better shape than me probably, right? And I need 8. You take 8, get 8. That's what you're supposed to get. Okay. Nutrition, very important. I'm an example though that eating perfectly, but then smashing the bottle all the time is not gonna, it's not gonna balance. You can't chase that away with good nutrition. So now I didn't stop drinking, but I don't drink when stress is up. So like, over all kinds of times in the COVID, booze goes down. Okay, so when stress is up, booze go down instead of the opposite, which used to be me. So when stress is up, self-care goes up. So I start to be even more, even though I'm busier than I've ever been the last 2 weeks, I'm like a dictator with my time. I will work out. I will do 10 minutes of like either reading or meditation or just sitting quietly a day. I will do these things because I need to, so that when those other moments are coming, all this reopening, not opening, and all that nonsense comes, you got to roll with it, right? Brush your brain every single day, brush your brain. Okay. So that you don't get cavities, right? You go to the dentist, brush your brain the same way that you would. Surround yourself with people that have a positive influence on your life. Why on earth are we all so okay with being around people that are negative? Like I have a rules. I'm looking in front of me on my office. I have like a bunch of rules that say that the things that I will not do. These are standards for my life. So I will not say no to my boys when they want to read with me. I will not gossip. I will not respond to negative behavior or attitude with a negative response. And I mean, like, if I'm at the grocery store and the lady says to me who bagged my groceries, the young guy says to me, "Oh, it's so crappy outside, so busy here." Like, I respond with like, "Yeah, it's a perfect day for me to go and read my book. Oh, it's so busy in here. That's so great for this business." Like, you want to just respond with a positive, and then people will either like, you keep doing that, the shitty negative people will just leave your life, or even better, you've created a positive impact and they will start to change their tone. I won't hit snooze. Okay. I won't surf social media before 8 a.m. Social media kills a lot of us. Okay. I won't talk shop with Dani. It's hard when you work together to not talk shop unless it's dedicated times. I won't check my phone during my workout. And most importantly for me, because this is my biggest weakness, was I will not have one more drink if I don't want it. Okay. So the police world and me, I'm famous for it. I was famous for it. One more. And then next thing you know, it's 5 a.m. Right. So level up in some kind of way. If you're not learning, you're becoming stagnant. Stagnant dies, right? Get help. Don't try to do it all on your own like I did, right? Get those coaches, get those mentors, get a counselor, get a doctor, whatever you got to do. And then structure equals freedom. It sounds crazy to say that from a guy who just gave up everything to just kind of do my own thing, but structure equals freedom. And with that, freedom equals happiness. Okay, so build work around your life, not the opposite. Okay, so if there are policemen on here or policemen that watch this later, how quickly we will jump for to work 3 hours for $100 an hour. That doesn't make a fucking difference in your life. Dani gave up 100 grand. I gave up 100 grand. The gym doesn't make anywhere close to that. We live exactly the same. So you can surely give up $150 of overtime on a Sunday because your time with your family, you never get back. Time is not money. Time is life. Guard it. Okay. Say no to things. If you don't want to do something, say no. If it's not a hell yes, it's a fuck no. Those are the way that you kind of protect your life, protect the things that are important to you, and that you don't get dragged down. Because every time you get dragged down, whether it's PTSD or whatever else you got going on in your life, it's going to start to show its signs because those stressors wear on you and you start to own other people's problems. So anyways, that's all I got for you. Sean's on here. I'm like more than willing. I love answering questions. It helps me get better on track. Those are my handles. I love you guys listen to the podcast. It's really good. I promise. Just need more people to listen to it. So yeah, go blast away.
So I first of all, just want to say thank you, Tony. I know that this is not an easy thing to do, and really appreciate that you took the time at a time when your business is so busy, and we're so vulnerable with all of us sharing your story. I have mad respect for you. This is not, Tony didn't pay me to plug, him or the Garage Gym or his podcast, but I'm a fan. I've done a couple things with the Garage Gym, and I think that the community mentality and the leadership that you teach is super important and valuable. And the guests that you have on your podcast are amazing. It's little nuggets of wisdom that get thrown out all the time, like that you've been sharing this morning. So everybody check those out. I highly encourage it. So if we want to get to some questions, we can probably do that. Let me just see here the chat. Just lots of thank yous. Let's see.
Doing here too. So PTSD, the whole body tragedy. Yeah. So like, I don't know, Sean could correct me here if I'm wrong, but it doesn't have to be like where you're like, I have some friends, some acquaintances that were like, living in a tent in their backyard. Like, it doesn't have to be that terrible to be there. Like, but maybe that's where I would have got. So like, the quicker you can handle it. And the only regret I have out of everything that's happened is that, like, how many great years did I give up by not going earlier, right? I had great times and great years, but it has always had that, like, that back part of it on there. And I want to make sure that, like, if you could do it now, man, just do it. Just go and you find out, just go and talk to somebody, and like, who cares if nothing's wrong with you? Even better, right? And you build that relationship first. Did I have panic attacks? No, a little. The most I ever felt, I remember I was on a pier with my, this is weird. I'm not scared of heights. Like, I've jumped off buildings. I've been in helicopters. I've done all these crazy things. I've even been in a one where the engine exploded, believe it or not. But anyways, that just besides the fact, I was on a pier in like Fort Myers or Naples, Florida, with my mom and my dad and my kids and my wife. And I remember this, I've never felt what I felt in my chest that day. And that was probably when I was like at the peak of probably having my problems. And it was like, I was just terrified that something was going to happen to them. And I think when you've seen accidents happen every way possible, drownings and things like that, you just become more and more, I guess, susceptible to those things. So was it a panic attack? No, but I think that was probably what a panic attack would feel like. I don't really know. What do you recommend to your police friends still working? Is just that. I think, like, keeping your friends, not being committed to just work. Like, when you leave work, like, kind of have like a tradition. For me, like, even when I leave work today or these days, like, I spend, like, I have like a 10-minute decompression, like, come home, whether, I don't want to promote vices. Like, sometimes it's smoking a cigar. Sometimes it is having a drink, and it's not having a drink because I want to have a drink it's just, relax. Maybe it's reading 10 pages of a book, or going, like, if you're not somebody who's active at work, doing a 10-minute walk or bike ride, rather than just walking in the door and feeling all of that. Like, your wife and your kids are excited to see you, but sometimes it feels like, it's like, holy fuck, give me a minute here, step back, right? Take that minute before you go in the door, and then you don't react negatively to them. But I think a lot of police officers lose that because you come so involved with that job, and you don't step away. It's your uniform. It's not who you are, right? It's a uniform that you can take on and off. You're like a superhero, right? Take it off and then put it on when it's time to do hero shit. Okay. Do you share your story? Yes, I'm open with any cop that wants to talk. And we've talked a lot about it on the podcast at length, actually. And, before this all happened, I was supposed to go start talking with LaSalle Police and some other police departments. So I do hope to do more of this. I mean, if we could save one person, right? If one person doesn't, feel that way, or helps one other person, then, man, everything we're doing is a win, right? In hindsight, is there anything you could have encouraged you to get help sooner? I don't know how. I do think that, like, with the changing culture at the police service, that I really hope people won't get as feeling as low as I did. So I really hope that that's the case. Improved connections and relationships between administrators and peer-to-peer, I think, is the best way to do it. And just kind of making it the norm. Honestly, I think, and this might even be the case. I think that no matter what, when you do these critical incidents, you should have to go and sit in a room with a doctor or a counselor or whatever it might be. Not right now. When I was there at the start, they didn't do anything. And then towards the end, it was like they would come in and have like a doctor stand in front of us in a room full of 40 people and kind of say like, hey, it's okay to feel okay. And everybody's kind of like, ah, yeah, we all kind of feel shitty, but we felt like this before, we'll feel fine tomorrow. So I think like forcing you to go in and just, even if you just end up talking or just saying hi and introducing himself, that maybe when that one does impact you, it will happen. And it's weird because, the things I listed are just some of the ones that really stuck with me. There's a lot of shitty things that didn't bother me whatsoever. Like some crazy things. You guys wouldn't believe the things that I've seen and done that didn't bother me whatsoever. It just doesn't even make sense sometimes, right? Oh, thank you for the nice things you guys are all saying on here, though. Did I get all of the things? Panic attacks, questions. Anything else? I think I answered them all. If I didn't answer them right, my quote. Yeah, you cannot heal in the same environment that made you sick. Right. That was my kind of reasoning behind leaving the police department, I guess. But the idea is, like I said at the very top of this, for anybody who missed it, don't get sick. Don't get sick, right? Like, or like kind of like, the whole idea, I'm not a pro or anti anything for this COVID, but like, if you can do something right now that's going to reduce the symptoms, right? If like me going out and making sure that I'm fit and healthy is going to reduce the symptoms, so that when I do catch the flu or any kind of other cold, it's the same idea. If I can do some things that are going to make my mind stronger and more resilient, give me some coping strategies before I face the real problems, then my symptoms, I guess in theory, in my opinion, Sean, jump in there if I'm wrong, but my symptoms won't be as bad. What is this? Is there anything could help change the environment of policing? Man, to change the environment of policing, I've spoke with Kim and Carrie about this at length. I mean, I don't know that there is. To my opinion, for everything that gets better, a lot of things get worse. And what could help is if like people like all of us on this call would stop questioning every single thing that they did. One thing, although the most frustrating thing I think about policing, I think any cop would tell you this, is that you read and you see that use of force or this or that, everybody's not okay with it until you're the victim. You want everybody to have all these rights. You don't want us to stop somebody driving down the street because it's wrong, right? Because I'm picking on somebody. But if it's your house that was supposed to be broken into, you sure as hell want that. So I think putting more trust into these people and the professionalism that goes with them, the 99.9% of these guys and girls, they are switched on, they're professional, they have experience. And yes, I can tell a bad guy by looking at you. Okay, that's the way of the world. That's the way it becomes. And we've taken that trust away from them because of these incidents that become, wrong for sure. However, they are just the highlight, right? Like, for every use of force, there's probably 100,000 that aren't. And that's for justified use of force. Just imagine the ones that aren't justified. So it's become it's very frustrating. There's no wins. There's no wins when you can't do anything right. So the police officers now have become more of a, show up after the crime has happened and take the report and go on, right? They're not able to, because of the current state of affairs and laws, they're not able to kind of do what they do best, which is prevent crime, which is the number one. It's the difference between policemen and firemen and paramedics, right? Is that police are supposed to be stopping these things from happening, whereas, the other two are more as a response to something that's happened. So I don't want to get too political, but that's my opinion.
There was just one other question about what helped you when you were transitioning, leaving the force.
What helped me? Man, there's so many people and things that helped me, but I'm a big believer in investing in yourself. So I spent a lot of money to go on coaching and I feel like a lot of people don't do that. I feel like a lot of people, like, if you want to get better and you're just going to do what you did today and yesterday, you're never going to improve, right? That's the surest way to insanity, is to do things the same. So by investing in myself, I went on a course, and it was actually friends of mine encouraged me to go. It was right after there was a shooting downtown, that last big shooting at McDonald's, and I was very involved in that. It wasn't myself who was hurt or shot, but I was very, very involved in the call. And I went on this course, and I told this like, I was kind of there. I don't know why I was there. I think I just went because it was in California. I wanted to have some fun with my buddies. And I didn't expect to get much out of this course. And it was very like deep in self-awareness, which at that point really was kind of throwing me off. And the guy's like, what do you want to do? I'm like, I'd like to own a few gyms and do this and that. And then the guy looks at me, he's like, well, why don't you do it? I'm like, well, I don't. And he's like, well, how many raids did you do? I don't know, 1,000. Well, why did you do the raids? Well, because I had confidence in myself and my team. You know, even though you knew there was a gun behind the door. Yeah, even though I knew there was a gun behind the door. He's like, well, same thing. Just go, kick the door in and go and have the courage to do it. And that was, and I always made a point of telling people. So when I left that course that day, the guy that I went with, I said, hey, July 1st, I'm quitting the police service. And that was 5 months later. And I held on to it to the T. So a lot of us want to tell our goals. You just keep them inside and then they stop. They just disappear. If you tell everybody, you tell people that you really respect and care about your goals, you will find a way to get there. So, and we always have, and it's been no regrets since. I miss some of the people I worked with. I miss the adrenaline, but I don't really miss much else other than that.
That's awesome.
Yeah, Dave, there's no quick fix. I know you know that.
Yeah.
It's got to start from the bottom up, I think. The fixes. I think the fixes got to start from the bottom up, which means some administrators, you know, loosening the grip on what they do and trusting in their people to make decisions. I think that would be the great one.
Yeah, sorry, Tony, I just want to jump in.
Go ahead, buddy.
Yeah, thank you for everything. But you talked about like trying to front load that and build that resilience. And, you know, it's, at least we have Dr. McGrory that comes in and he talks to our new recruits, you know, people coming back from OPC. It's trying to get people to build a relationship with a psychologist before it gets, you know, like you had said, but you worked here, you know, it's there's a good section of people that are, yep, I'm all for it. And then there's a big chunk of people that are, whatever, they're bitter and they're jaded. So, you know, I do think we're moving in the right direction. It's just slow. It's tough to get traction sometimes. So the best thing, the most impactful thing, Tony, like, is what you were doing. When you hear another cop story, I'm just speaking because, you know, from a police perspective, but when you hear another cop story and what you've gone through, there's nobody, I bet you nobody, Tony's ever come up to you and said, oh no, that's never happened to me. If they may not say anything, but I can't imagine that they would say, no, I never experienced any of that, because it's all a little bit broken.
Yeah, I agree very much, Dave. I feel like there's gotta, I feel like it sounds terrible to say, but I feel like there's gotta be something wrong with all of you and all of us, right? At some level, maybe not as deep as others in some points, but yeah, like, I mean, you see it, especially now being out of it, now going and sitting down with, you're a pretty positive guy, but I'm sure you could name 10 people that aren't, right? And that I would go and sit down and talk to my good friends, people that I consider like top line guys, like, you know, A guys and girls, and you can just feel that negative vibe, that disconnect that comes off them, and that instantly being able to snap. And you know, if you point that out to them, sometimes it really helps. It's like, hey, do you think like reacting like that is the best for you? Like, what else can you do? Can you control that? Not, yeah, I can't agree more, man. And I'm happy to see. I know there's being action taken, and I want to see more people like from the bottom up start leading that place. And that's not a bash towards administration. It's not received the same. And I had these talks with Kim and Carrie. It's just not received the same when an administrator walks in and delivers some of these things. So we have to find more people with courage from the bottom to do it.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think to Evelina's point, it's all of the helping professions, right? It's, you know, everybody, like you said, from, you know, border services to firemen, paramedics, nurses, it's all first responders. And yeah, if anybody needs any help, I mean, that's what we're here for. So please reach out. We've had lots of resources put up in the chat. Thanks, Evelina and Carrie. And just want to say thanks again, Tony, for making this part of your day and sharing with us. And we really, really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you. So I think unless there are any other questions, we will let everybody go about their day and have an awesome day.